I'm putting it on the record. Like Louisville's beating Tennessee on Saturday, Phil.
Oh, okay.
They're
So
they're
what's
going
the
to win that
data?
game.
What's the data behind this? As my little basketball Benny has given me his stone cold lock of the week, it sounds like.
Yeah, if you get it at I technically am not allowed to bet with my
Allegedly.
job these days.
Oh God. I mean,
Yeah,
you know a guy. Allegedly. Allegedly.
I'm just gonna leave that as
Allegedly.
is. But if you can get Louisville at plus money on Saturday, I would be that I think that's a good bet.
I'm
A
facial
good money line.
recognitioning that
Look,
right now. And for the fine folks and partners here at ESPN Louisville, for FanDuel, DraftKings, BetMGM, Caesars, I will heed your advice.
yeah, but I'll say this. First of all, like I've seen Tennessee in person already. I went up. I'm the maniac that drove up to Knoxville when they played Indiana in the charity exhibition.
God, you have an
Um,
illness, but I love it.
it was a good game actually, but the more data we start to get since that, I think like I thought about this at the time that okay, Indiana in that game, which is another team Louisville's going to play in a couple weeks, and I think as of right now, I think Louisville's going to beat Indiana.
Okay.
Um, at the time, the thought process was I was genuinely surprised about how quality of a shot Indiana was able to get against a Tennessee Rick Barnes defense. Like IU didn't really run anything too complex in that game. Basically, all their offense was, getting out in transition or they ran a lot of floppy action. Think that they ran a lot of floppy action in terms of trying to get guys open on the perimeter. They were able to have some post ups, things like that. But they really weren't doing anything all that complicated. Yet Indiana was able to get good looks. They were able to get good shots a lot of the time throughout that game. They were up over 1.3 points per possession in the second half in that. But then you watch Indiana against SIU Edwardsville in their season opener, and they were a complete mess offensively.
Oh, trust me,
Tennessee plays
I had the first half under, and it was under
that was a good
71.
bet. That was probably a good bet.
No. It went. They got 72. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah. Yep, that's
that's
sports
brutal.
gambling. So yeah,
That's
that's
brutal.
yeah, yep, yep.
But anyways, and then you watch Tennessee and Gardner Webb, where Tennessee gets out rebounded by Gardner Webb.
Yeah.
And Gardner Webb scores 64 points in that game. This is not a typical Rick Barnes Tennessee defense at this point. And to quote Rick Pitino, Dalton Connect's not walking through that door. Chaz Lanier is a very gifted scorer, a very good player. He is not Dalton Connect. Zakai Ziegler is a really, really great seasoned veteran point guard, and he's going to cause a lot of problems for Louisville, especially on the defensive end of the floor. But they don't have that same team defense right now that we're used to seeing from Rick Barnes teams. Plus, they have some injury concerns right now. JP Estrella didn't play in the Gardner Webb game. He's really a stretch four for them. Felix Akpara, the dude, the Ohio State transfer that I really think is going to give or really thought that would give Louisville more issues than anyone else other than probably Ziegler. Because he's a 7 foot guy, legit shot blocker, really athletic, a guy that can step out and guard on the perimeter some as well and be a really effective post scorer. He has a hit pointer right now. I don't know if he's going to play in that game. So you're getting Tennessee right now undermanned, not gelling defensively, and Indiana, because Indiana doesn't defend worth a shit either. They gave him 29 threes in that game. Probably 25 of the 29 Tennessee took were good looks, and they bricked 21 of them. Like, this isn't a great shooting team on top of it as well, to where I look at all these things and I say, if Indiana's getting good looks against Tennessee and Gardner Webb's beating Tennessee on the rebounding edge, Louisville, who has, an identity on the offensive end right now, who, the rebounding thing's a question mark for them, but maybe that's not as big of a weakness as we thought it might be going into this game, especially if Tennessee's front line is banged up. I think this could work out really well for Louisville to where they're able to go and make a statement, especially in an insane hostile environment, no matter how many people are there in the Yum Center. That's just going to be ready to explode after what's happened the last few years of this program.
Well, you brought something up about the rebounding, and that's kind of been a narrative that I would say has been created here locally. Is that some of the issues, and maybe it's just kind of looking at the roster, just seeing how thin. Not necessarily the height is an issue, but it's just you got James Scott, who's not the most muscular banger in the post. Casey Pryor obviously can get some
And James
rebounds,
Scott
but
has to stay out of foul trouble too.
exactly. So is that a concern for you? throughout the season, like next man up. But then you see somebody like Abubakar Traore who can go up there and soar with, some of the giants out there. But I wasn't sure your initial takeaways from just a rebounding standpoint of how you felt about that.
I thought against Bar Louisville was great early. Like they were really, really good on the glass early. I think they were up like 13-4, 14-5, something like that. But as the game went along, again, when James Scott had some foul trouble issue, Cason Pryor had 15, 16 rebounds in the game. He was phenomenal on the glass, but the team rebounding wasn't as good as what I was hoping for, and kind of like I because they only won the rebounding edge by 4, I think, throughout the game. For that to where, yes, that is absolutely a question. That's something that off the bat I thought Tennessee will give them issues with, especially if Agpara is able to play. But Tennessee, they weren't rebounding the ball well against Indiana in the exhibition. They weren't rebounding the ball well against Gardner-Webb in game 1. And yes, these are all small sample sizes. You can get burned when you overreact to small sample sizes, but I think that's all we got right now. And yes, but all these teams have a lot of time to grow and improve and get better at that. But the fact is, this game's on Saturday. It's coming up soon. What we've seen so far is pretty much where they are at the moment in terms of what they're going to be, to where I don't think Louisville's that good of a rebounding team right now. I don't think Tennessee is that good of a rebounding team right now, to where I don't think it's going to hurt Louisville as much as I would have thought a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I think big picture when you're just breaking down just like the entire ACC and just the league as a whole. And
which, by the way, North Carolina got out rebounded by Elon.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that was something that popped out to be as well in terms of when you're just kind of looking at the overall league and scope of where Louisville could possibly be. But man, like if they can embody just some of the energy that Pat Kelsey has, and I think that they have. So we got to look. This is like PTI behind us or around the horn. We just got all the bouncers behind us. That's gonna be Goodman's gonna be thrilled about this. Take that. He's gonna love this. You dropped an S bomb on me. I guess Goodman's allowing that now that Fanta and you are just. Making it Field of 68 after dark. But anyways, it's just been fascinating just to kind of see the excitement around that. But one of the things in the guard play, not concerned about. I think there's scores there. I think there's guys on this team that can go out and get you points. The one question mark I've had, and Leibs has kind of shot this down a couple of times, is like if you got guys that are going to bang it down there, play bigger than what they actually are, it's not going to be a concern. But, when you get into the Dukes of the world, you alluded to Carolina, just one of the brands, but struggled rebounding out there. So,
right, but like Carolina is trotting out Jalen Washington and Jalen Withers as a front line right
boy,
now.
I saw Jalen Withers in the charity game against Memphis, and I go, huh. I was like, still hanging around. It's like the Van Wilder of college basketball, just still him and Matt Cross just lingering around still. But and I don't know about you, man. So I used to do this exercise, and I know I don't have to worry about this with you, but I did an exercise before every year where I would get the Courier Journal. Shout out to Eric Crawford, Pat Forty, and Rick Bozich for this. But I would memorize the local rosters based off that. And it has been so challenging locally, not but like on a conference level, it has been so challenging to kind of get the memory of the entire rosters through the transfer portal. I sound like I'm Billy Reed, RIP, but it's been so difficult to keep up with everyone from the transfer portal. I'm like, he plays there? So that's a little food for thought inside the brain of your boy.
Yeah, the Matt Cross playing at SMU thing genuinely shocked me during ACC media days. That one I didn't know.
I was like, Matt Cross?
Huh. Yeah, but like against Duke, which to be fair, a lot of teams are really going to struggle against Duke on the glass and on the boards, on the length. Yeah, Kentucky is, I think, honestly, just kind of a little bit of a taller, bigger version of Louisville. I mean, they're both very similar teams at this stage. But I think Kentucky does have a little bit more size in the front court, so we'll see how that game plays out, which I think is going to be a spectacular basketball game just to watch. Indiana has, Umar Ballo, Malik Renew. They're, two really big, talented dudes, but Mike Woodson's teams can't rebound despite being incredibly tall every year, and it just does not make sense. I'll spare that whole diatribe for another, podcast or something like that, because this isn't an Indiana podcast. But I mean, they're going to struggle with it depending on the matchups, and I think Tennessee will be a good barometer. It's going to be such a good litmus test for Louisville on so many levels, to where I think Tennessee's probably overrated as the 12th best team in the country right now. But it's still, it's still Rick Barnes, it's still Zakai Ziegler. You have
him and Chucky Hepburn. That's going to be such a fun. That's going to be so fun. I've been a big fan of Chucky Hepburn for really just the college basketball fan, and it's like, man, he's kind of lingering around there. Whenever he was getting in the mix for Louisville, I was like, that would be an absolute dynamite pickup for Pat Kelsey. So I'm thrilled for that matchup coming up on Saturday.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Two of probably the best 3-4 on-ball defenders in the sport going at against each other. And I'm interested. I'm very interested to see what Pat Kelsey does if they're actually going to be matched up on each other all game. Like I know Zakai Ziegler is going to be guarding Chucky Hepburn. Like
Right.
that's a given. But does Chucky guard Zakai Ziegler? Does he guard Chaz Lanier? I think is going to be a really great question because you could take a Javon Hadley or a Terrence Edwards and try to disrupt Ziegler a little bit with his length, with their length instead of and take your best on ball defender and say, okay, we want him on your best scorer. And I think if I was Pat Kelsey, I think that might be what I would do. But you can't go wrong with trying to again cut the head of the snake off and say we want Chucky Hepburn, really making it tough for Ziegler to even bring the ball up there. Then the lineup combinations have a lot to do that as well. How do you change it if you play Chucky Hepburn and Corin Johnson together, which he did for long stretches against Morehead State? What happens when Rain Smith is in there? What happens when you have so many different lineups that you can have? What's hilarious is there's people going out behind us and going through from ESPN Louisville, and I'm waving hi to everyone. What's funny is you're going to be cropped when we actually put this out there, Phil. So little of this is actually going to be visible.
That's perfect.
Which is just so perfect on so many levels. So yeah, if I get distracted at any point, that would be why. Because yeah, the people I'm friends with there. But how Pat Kelsey chooses to defend Tennessee and what he decides to do with the matchups to me is going to be really fascinating. I would not, again, if it was me, I would put Chucky Hepburn on Chaz Lanier. That's what you think of like back in the day, it's a little bit of a different setup, but John Calipari, the year Kentucky won the national title, he would put Michael Kidd-Gilchrist on the opposing team's best scorer. And Chucky Hepburn doesn't have the versatility that Michael Kidd-Gilchrist has. Kidd-Gilchrist was like 6'7". But if they were playing a team that had a really I remember the Indiana games, they would put Michael Kidd-Gilchrist on Jordan Holt's, 6-foot white guy from Wilmington, Indiana, and say
play with them probably in a JCC men's league now. Yeah,
but they would go he's not going to let you get shots off in this game. You're going to make you work for everything. And Chucky Hepburn, even though he's not as tall, you can't do that like when you play Duke and Cooper Flag, for instance, in a game against Tennessee against Chaz Lanier, dude that's like 6'3", 6'4". I think you could absolutely put Chucky Hepburn on there and say, take the best scorer out of the game. Rick Barnes' teams outside of the Dalton Connect year aren't very good offensively. We're going to make them try to run offense to beat us. And I don't know if Tennessee can do that.
Well, and I think with this Louisville roster, it's look, you can talk about just the scope of just the entirety of the season. First, making the tournament, Pat Kelsey's just demeanor as a head coach, and look, he's still learning on the job. I'm curious to see when this honeymoon and a play doesn't go right and win a game. But I think he's going to have such a massive honeymoon phase and grace period just because of the effort and defense that you've seen thus far, and then the shooting that you've been able to see that you've been pretty impressed with. Big picture. Hey, there's the Double D right there saying hi as well too. But look, I think overall should be a fun game at the KFC Yum Center. So many people are excited about it.